Hello, the Xinxin Ming. We're going to be taking up this sutra in our Dharma discussions over the next few months. And I thought I'd just put together a little bit of context for how we might look at this. Really, it's a remarkable sutra. The first of the Zen texts, it is often called, the first time that Zen was formulated in this way. And when we look at it, it really is more of a mixture of Buddhism and Taoism, a Buddhist Taoism that was being expressed here. But just to take a step back, before the Xinxin Ming, there had been Buddhism in China. Some centuries before, texts like sutras and scriptures began arriving along the Silk Road from India to China. For the Chinese, this is remarkable. Up until that point, the Chinese had believed more or less that they were the only literate society, that they were the only society that had a long history of writing and formulating philosophies and so forth. So when these new texts came from India, it was like a message came from a different far-off star or planet, and people devoured them and wanted to understand the thinking of these people from far, far away. That made sense in a lot of ways with what they understood of the Confucianism and Taoism that was going on in China. But around the time of the Chan Revolution, around the time that the Xinxin Ming was written, it's called often the Chan Revolution, where Bodhidharma, starting with Bodhidharma, and the ancestors that followed and the traditions that followed him, began to say that any insight that you are going to be getting from a book or from a sutra is inherently going to be weak if it's not something that's built into your experience. That rather having faith in a far-off Buddha or in accumulating merit over long periods of time and maybe being reborn into a pure land at some future point, rather than that, really what we need to be looking at is the experience of our life, the experience of this mind. So the Xinxin Ming, which as you know is translated as trust in the heart mind, was written at this time of this upheaval. And this is really the message of the Xinxin Ming. Trust in your own heart-mind. Trust in your own lived experience. Some scholars point to the influence of Nagarjuna in this. This is something that was being spoken about in India at that time, and possibly the source of some of this new understanding that was coming through into China. But the language that's being used in the Xinxin Ming is definitely Taoist in nature. So the Xinxin Ming can really be described as a result of this upheaval, creating a Buddhist Taoist language and creating a Buddhist Taoist teaching, which became Chan, which is Zen. It's a revolutionary way of looking at Taoism at that time, where the focus was definitely on the experience of the present moment and intimacy with nature. Buddhism also brought in the side of compassion, though, the idea that more than an emphasis on just being at peace with things as they are, we also need to notice that people are starving in the streets or that there's injustice being done. And so to live, how we live is important, and part of the teachings of ethics and so forth was around compassion and social responsibility. In the same way that was a revolution for Taoism, it was equally a revolution for Buddhism. Indian Buddhism, as you may notice, is fairly humorless, fairly grim, fairly puritanical in terms of its outlook and sort of coming out of that Brahmanic tradition of being authoritative and powerful. And so that mixture of Taoism and Buddhism created that sense of both the power of non-duality, but also the playfulness and the joy of experiencing a life as it is. Just a word about the Xinxin Ming that might be helpful. It's common, I think, for us to worry, particularly as we start to enter into the Buddhist path, to worry that we are losing our sense of passion, that a lot of the talk about oneness and non-duality and of being leaving aside our passions in some way, and there is some of that language in the Xinxin Ming. Means that we're sort of becoming a zombie. More than one person is worried that they were going to lose their personality through practice, and consider that. Is that the way you are experiencing your practice? I will say though that a lot. I don't experience it that way, but I think it's a good thing to look at. One of the things though that I think comes through in the Xinxin Ming, and part of the power of studying a text like the Xinxin Ming, is that this is a way of life, a point of view on life, a way of embracing and living life that is seriously at odds with the way we live in our society most commonly. It's a way of life that asks us to forego aggression and violence, certainly, but also transcending ways, thinking about wins and losses, or gain and loss, alienation and atomization. They can't survive in the way that the Xinxin Ming asks us to consider things. So while the Xinxin Ming was written in 6th century China, it has power, I believe, for upheaval today still. Thanks.